Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Flat Earth UK Live. Joining me tonight is the host of Globebusters and the Jeranism channel on YouTube and Monday Night Raw on Truth Frequency Radio. Jeran, welcome to Flat Earth UK Live.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. On tonight's show, we will be discussing flat Earth testing and flat Earth proof, looking at the eye-level horizon, discussing religious beliefs and Freemasonry, heliocentric texts from years gone by, the stars, and why 99% of us believe we live on a globe. And if we get time, we might even talk about possible truth from NASA. So, Jeran, if you can kick us off by telling us, how did you find out the Earth is flat?
Yeah, came to the conclusion around the end of last year. Basically started with my wife and I kind of coming to the conclusion that religion was, filled with lies, and life was filled with lies, and government was filled with lies. And we just kind of wanted to start all over again. So we went back to the beginning and kind of said we were going to erase the slate and just believe what we could ourselves prove and try and move forward that way. And so we said, let's kind of clean the slate, start over. So we did that. It was a week or so later that my wife was looking out the window of our bedroom and said something to the effect of, "Do you think the Earth can be flat?" And I turned and looked at her like she was crazy and said, "No, how would planes go around the Earth? That's ridiculous." And got mad at her because I thought she went too far back. And I said, there's some things that are just true and we don't need to question those. We need to go, past that and start questioning from a point where we already know some things are true. I said, our hands aren't made of...
denied it, didn't you, then? You sort of argued the toss with your wife, if you like.
I did. Yeah, I told her, that's ridiculous to think that way. And at that time, I was looking kind of into the moon landings and just solidifying the fact that they never happened. And I happened to stumble across Eric Dubé's site at Atlantean Conspiracy. And in reading that page, where she talks a lot about the reasons that the moon landings didn't take place, I saw that he was also a flat earther. And there was a few points that he had made that kind of really settled with me. And I just started thinking, and I can remember growing up and even in third grade or, primary school, questioning the whole idea of us spinning and questioning the whole idea of the Earth, spinning, and the actual sun and moon were a result of the spinning of the Earth. I just never felt it. So when I started to read this, it all kind of started to hit hard at home. And I remember looking into geocentricity probably 3 years ago, and kind of seeing Robert Sungenis and some other stuff. And I couldn't rationalize that either in my head. I said, if I can't even believe that we're a spinning ball, how am I supposed to believe now that we're a ball that just hovers and doesn't move? And that didn't make any sense to me. The actual heliocentricity made more sense to me because just the whole system seems to work better than when you're talking about a geocentric Earth with all the stars going around us and the sun going around us and its huge size and distances. Just didn't make any sense. So when I started to read...
Maybe the question should be rephrased slightly for you. What was the point that you realized that you weren't on a globe?
Would have been right about that moment. I turned to my wife and just kind of told her that I think you might be right. I said, we need to kind of look into this. And then we just started the search from there. And it was the first time in my life, as far as researching conspiracies, that it all started to fall into place. It was the answer for everything. It was the reason why everything is the way it is. And yeah, I woke up one morning too. I remember waking up and laughing. I was in bed and I was laughing because I had this kind of vision of people living on a ball. And it was hilarious. The whole idea of how planes would fly and how birds would fly and how boats would go on the ocean. And then it was just a matter of going back and looking at what the scientific explanation is. And when you hear an explanation like, well, to each person's own perspective, or to each person, this is what they see, that's not scientific. It's not even realistic. It's metaphysical. It's a thought process. It's not at all reality. And so then it started to settle in that, man, is there a chance that they taught us all something as reality when actually it's just a religion? It's a belief. You can believe you live on a ball all you want, but it's not a physical possibility. It's not even possible for there to be somebody standing opposite you, antipode to you at the bottom of the earth, upside down. Now, when you say that to somebody, they'll laugh and say, you don't understand gravity. Gravity pulls everybody to the center. So you say, well, where's the evidence of this? Where's the example? Where's the tests? Where's the proof? And they'll say proof, and they'll hold up their pen and drop it on the ground and say, there's proof gravity. You say, yeah, that's proof that things fall towards the earth. But it certainly doesn't mean that somebody underneath me, things fall up towards my feet. And, just doesn't make any sense. It's absolutely
the lack of proof, the real lack of any physical, real world proof of what they say, as opposed to what they just say or prove with maths. Right,
exactly. It's completely non-realistic. There's no way for them to prove it. I keep saying to people, show me a sphere, and you can put it inside a vacuum, outside a vacuum, I don't care. Show me a sphere that when you spin, water sticks to its surface. It's insanity.
I mean, you've gone out and actually done the opposite, which is go out and test and prove flat Earth. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about some of the tests you've done?
Yeah, sorry, I had my mute on. Yeah, my wife and I wanted to kind of test this ourselves and wanted to do some of the research on our own rather than take other people's word for it. So we kind of got an idea to shoot a laser across the ocean. We found a nice section in Monterey here, close to where we live, a 4-mile stretch where from Lover's Point in Pacific Grove across the beach to Seaside is the name of the city, or Sand City, is about a 4-mile stretch across the ocean. So we got this idea that if we could get a laser that would shoot that distance, when you do the math on that, the drop should be 10 feet, meaning 4 miles should be 10 foot of curvature, meaning if we shine a laser across the ocean, it should hit at a spot 10 feet above sea level. If it hit any lower than that, well, the earth isn't curved. So I put out a video asking for anybody to loan me their laser or to donate. And Bob, my co-host on Monday nights and Tuesday nights, he was gracious enough. He emailed me and said, hey, I like what you're doing. I like the way you're going about this. Can I buy you the laser? So he ended up shipping me a really cool laser. Thing was awesome. You could put a match in front of it. It would light up. It was just incredible little laser. So we went out one night and shot it across the water. The first time we did it, though, when we shot the laser across, we weren't paying attention to the fact that the beam, it grew, it diverged by the time it got to the other side. So my wife was on the other side of the ocean and we were talking on the phone and I said, do you see the light there? And she said, yeah, but it's about 10 foot in diameter. And I said, oh man, well that kind of spoils the whole idea. Now, going back and thinking about it, it actually was sufficient proof. The fact that the entire beam of laser was being able to be seen a foot or two above the ocean level was actually proof that the earth wasn't curved. But we wanted to do it again. So we came back the following night with a little different idea that we would shoot the laser from the side that she was on against a whiteboard, kind of like shining it just on the whiteboard, and then have somebody on the other side zoom in their camera, saying that if they could see it from the other side, then that would be proof. And yeah, I mean, they saw it from like an inch above the ground. It was really, it was quality to us as far as proof for me. Some people have gone back and looked at it and said possibly because the camera was about 3 feet off the ground, and then we were technically a foot or so above sea level. They said that 4 foot difference would kind of balance it out. I've seen the numbers. It maybe takes the curvature down to 3 or 4 feet. So the fact that we see it is still proof to me. Other people have taken the numbers and then looked at Google Earth and said that we were 7 feet above sea level, which is ridiculous because right there we have it on camera. You can just search Jeranism 4-mile laser test results. We were right there at the water. So he made a video that said our measurements were off because we were 7 feet above sea level. And it's like 7 feet, that's ridiculous. That's like my wife is standing on top of my head and we're way up that high. Like that's ridiculous. We're right here at the ocean. Our feet are right at the ocean level. So for me, it was sufficient proof. We're going to hope to get some experiments going soon. I would like to do some distances much greater. I think we'll be able to show 25 miles, 30 miles, a light showing where it shouldn't.
I mean, some of Mark Sargent's guests are doing things that are, you know, with Navy equipment that's doing or stepping up your principles to a massive extent. I mean, this is provable time and time again. And I think one of the things that you say on your show quite frequently is, don't trust me, don't take my word for it, go out and test. I mean, it's nice to see that you're actually doing these tests, but it's ultimately about proving it to yourself and ignoring the heliocentric maths, and that's precisely what you've done. Can you tell us a little bit about the water itself? It's one of the sort of flat Earth principles that we hang a lot on.
Sure. Yeah, I do think it's so important, because I don't think that truth can be, you know, told to somebody. If somebody would have just shown up on a YouTube video and told me that the Earth was flat, I would have thought they were crazy, and I wouldn't even have listened to them. So I understand where they come from. But it kind of was a realization that came to me, and that's what I'm hoping to get across to everybody. I think that the way I present my videos, if somebody would have came out and I would have seen a video kind of like my own, it would have helped me to start to realize, wait a second, I see what he's saying. Okay, well, wait a second. And then I would have been able to kind of think it out myself. So that's what I'm trying to do. As far as water, you know, when we started thinking about that, I just started looking at the physics of water and saying, can water curve? Does water bend? And it doesn't. You know, it can slant. You know, it can do a lot of things. It can swell. It can have waves in the ocean. But as far as having a curvature, a measurable curvature, it does not. Physics says water is flat. In fact, you can do a level, they call it a spirit level, where a construction worker or somebody who's doing a foundation of a home will take a tube and hold one end at one place, and the other person will hold another end, and you mark off on the tube, say an inch below the little opening. And when the water is balanced at both places, that's what tells you your level, because the water is completely level with the ground. Now, people who believe in the globe will easily pass that off by saying, well, since the Earth is round and gravity pulls everything to the center, that no matter where you're at, the water is level because it's being pulled to the center of that point. So again, that's a metaphysical belief, because, okay, so you're saying that even though we live on a ball, that water is level every single place, which is the antithesis of a ball. It's the complete opposite. And they're able to explain that away because of a belief in this magical gravity force, which doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work in reality. They can't show it in reality. In fact, scientists themselves saw things happening in the universe that they couldn't explain anymore with gravity. So if they were real scientists, they would have simply taken gravity and thrown it out. That's what's required.
I was going to come on to this a bit later, Jeran, but as you've touched on it now, your beliefs are often heckled in the comments. I mean, not necessarily religious, but beyond what you've tested, what are your beliefs?
Are you asking for a religious point
Well,
of view?
kind of. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a certain point. You could phrase it, what's your favourite theories when it comes to the dome and such, but I know a little bit about you, and I don't want to lead you too much, but obviously you've had a religious upbringing, and I'm kind of, right. I want to give the audience your overall beliefs beyond what you can prove, as well as what you can prove.
Sure. I would say that I don't want to really have any beliefs. That's kind of what led us to the problems in the first place. And so, yeah, I had a religious upbringing, was brought up Catholic, went to a Catholic high school, Jesuit-run Catholic high school. Doesn't mean I'm a Jesuit. But I thought that during that time, there was a lot of things I believed in and just trusted on authority. And I wanted to get away from that. So when I look at myself and my wife and what things I can know to be true, I believe that without a doubt, without any doubt, that we are created, that we are from the mind of a thought process or from a God far beyond anything I can imagine. And I think that everything that I've ever read from a religious standpoint, everything I've ever read, even in the Bible, are humans trying to describe this undescribable force. And so it makes sense to me that they got things wrong. It makes sense to me that there's the Quran and there's the Bible, and that every single culture around the world has constantly been trying to explain that feeling we all have inside of us. I believe science is here to be the answer for people who are having trouble finding that answer, finding that religious belief that connects with them. And so an easier answer is just to say, oh, well, science is always right. Science is never wrong. Science is the study of everything. It's natural. I'm just going to believe in science. And they don't realize that it's a religion, because everything that, and I don't want to say everything, most of science is true application of the scientific method. But some of it, and sadly its foundations, are lies. They are dogma. They are just the same as somebody who has a starting point of, well, Adam and Eve is true, and everything else is true. Hold on one second, sorry. Okay, sorry.
I was going to ask you, you're quick to clarify that you weren't a Jesuit, which in of itself is kind of a fuss, but I know a lot of people, again, leave comments like that, and your knowledge of this is excellent. So can you just explain, A, why you said you weren't, and that's kind of obvious to a lot of us, but if you can explain it anyway, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, well, a Jesuit is a priest, number one, and I am not a priest. In order to become a priest, you have to go to the seminary, and you have to take certain oaths or vows or whatever, and I've never done anything like that. I was a youth group president for a few years, and then right around the age of, I guess it was 15 or so, I started working in the church office. So I actually worked right alongside priests, as far as I was the receptionist in the office. So as people came in, or as homeless people might come in and ask for handouts, or somebody might come in, they're having trouble in their relationship and they want to talk to a priest, I would introduce them or go get a priest. But that was it. I mean, there was no connection further than that. And I just saw priests to be real people. Priests are just like everyone else. They are people who have given up their life because they believe that by giving up your life on earth, that you will be rewarded in the end. And like I said, there is some priests that are bad. Obviously, we've seen tons of reports that would prove that. And we've also seen a lot of things that might say that the Catholic Church itself is completely corrupted from the top down. And I can't deny that, because I worked in a church and I went to a school that had Jesuit teachers. The only thing I would say that was weird about it was that maybe they pushed science. They really did push science as a major point. They, chemistry, biology, science was really big. And that always kind of made me think, man, I thought we're supposed to be religious, where this stuff is not really supposed to be as big as they're making it. Now, of course, it makes all the sense in the world. As a Jesuit-run education, they are just trying to kind of lead people down either path. Either you're going to go down that religious path or scientific, and they've got their hands in both. So they're able to control the world through the controlling of people's minds. Either you're going to believe what they tell you to believe in this area, or you're going to believe what they tell you to believe in this area. So,
I mean, have you ever held any other sort of fundamentalist beliefs other than flat Earth?
Ask it again, please.
Have you ever had any other fundamentalist beliefs?
Maybe ask me a specific belief, like what?
Well, it's more like when we're in this sort of community, we'll often get accused of being wacky just because we're looking into some off-the-wall conspiracies. Now, I've never dabbled in anything and gone on camera about a topic other than flat Earth and maybe hi-fi. So I would say, no, I've not held any other fundamentalist beliefs. And I just wondered if that was the case for you as well.
Yeah, I would say I've never been on camera or even made a video or anything that was anything about any kind of belief like that. I remember in 2004 or 2005, I had a buddy who told me that 9/11 was an inside job, and I told him he was crazy, that there's no way. And I would say, that was probably 3 or 4 years ago at this point that my wife and I did some research on that and came to the conclusion that it certainly wasn't what was given to us on the media, that it was possible that they were using trick photography or pre-recorded or edited photography and video to kind of present a certain story and let something else happen behind the closed doors. Then I started to look into more conspiracies and question NASA, question the moon landings. And then it just became, questioning religion at that point. and then went in straight into the flat Earth. Now, at this point, I kind of look at things with new eyes and feel I'm pretty good at looking at something and telling if it's a realistic, actual event, or whether it is a planned or contrived or set up situation. So, yeah, recently I did a video on the San Bernardino shooting, which just happened down here in Southern California. And from the second we saw the film, I said, I don't know, something seems wrong about that. It just never plays out the way reality would. And so
I saw your video. I mean, you basically pointed out that they do drills nonstop. And then when they've got the footage from some guy's camera phone, it shows a completely different incident, or the same incident, but at the back of a line of traffic. It was a bit of a farce from what I could see from your video.
Yeah, I'm actually going to do the video again and make it shorter just to show the one. I guess people say I rambled too much or no one's going to watch a 25-minute video. So I need to redo it and do it in about 5 or 10 minutes and just show exactly what you just said. Yeah, you can easily see that the car that is shot up at the end with all the bullet holes and the doors open is not the same vehicle that the guy with the cell phone camera is recording. And that'd be fine if they admitted that and just said, oh, he thought he saw the right car. But they're playing it off as if that's the vehicle being chased by the cops, because it is in his video being chased by cops. But the vehicle is like a setup vehicle. There's no way it could have gotten to the point where they shot it up in the amount of time that it supposedly happened. So I just want to show that because it's a setup. It's all meant to be a show. I recently found
for what purpose? I mean, I'll bring this back to the globe in a minute, but in that instance, what do you think the purpose of doing that is?
I think it does a lot of things. I don't think that we have as many enemies as politicians like to portray. I mean, if you are able to say that 9/11 was government known or planned, and from there you're able to say that Sandy Hook didn't happen the way they say, and some of these other mass shootings, the one at Aurora, this one down in San Bernardino, if they are not happening, then we don't have any enemies. That means that the last time, I couldn't even tell you the last time there was an actual true event where somebody who was not a United States citizen came to the United States to hurt Americans. It just doesn't happen. In fact, Americans don't go to other countries to hurt them. Now, if you're talking about our military, absolutely our military does, because it's run by the government who likes to steal and kill and cause problems. And, where do they go? Order through chaos, right? They think that they need the economy to run, so they need this money to be constantly moving. They need people to be in fear so that we're okay with paying these huge taxes for military. We have a standing militia in this country, meaning we always have the military at full force when we don't need them. People for the most part just want to live their lives in peace. They want to be happy within themselves. And everybody understands that. I don't want to go to Iraq and take anything away from anybody there. And they don't want to come here and take anything from me. Same thing with you. Same thing, somebody in any country.
So why lie to us about the globe then? I mean, obviously that makes perfect sense and I agree with you. But why lie about something like the globe?
Well, that one's, a lot bigger. But I think that it's going to depend ultimately on the final truth, meaning, is there a dome? Is there an end? Or is it kind of a limitless plane? Is there more land? Is there more to this than we've ever been told? And so that'll take a little while to find out. But I mean, as far as why they're lying about it, I personally think they may have at one time actually believed it to be a ball. Because if you take yourself back to the year 1000, let's just say, where there's no electricity, there's no zoom in photo cameras. You're just given life out in front of you. And yeah, it looks flat and we know that. But if you took yourself out on a boat to the ocean and watched boats leave you in every direction, they appear to go over the curve, over the edge. And then if you walk north to south, the stars change. So I could totally see where 1,000 years ago, people would have come to the conclusion that the earth must be a round ball. And they would have even been able to say maybe the people on the other side of the ball are also standing like we are. They wouldn't have had a way to phone call somebody and say, are you standing upright? Are you, they wouldn't have had a way to do that. So I could see where they thought it was possible that they lived on a ball. Now, as time went on, get to the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, I think it's highly possible that they realized they were wrong. And at that point, they had touted science as the end-all, be-all of human thought. Science is never wrong. They study everything. So they might have got to the point where they said, we need to keep up with this story, because if we don't, then people are going to know science is wrong. And that's probably the fear right now that they have. If the world ever found out the earth is flat, imagine what that would do to science. It would completely throw it into disarray. Chaos. Yeah. And I know Mark Sargent said that the religions would take back over, but hopefully people understand that shouldn't happen either, because all religion bought into the scientific theory as well. I mean, if you ask a Catholic priest if the earth is a ball, they'll tell you absolutely. Ask a Jewish rabbi, ask anybody in the religious world whether or not we live on a ball. They've all bought into the ball story.
Yeah, I did exactly that. I asked my uncle, who's a pastor, and it was bizarre. I foolishly thought that I'd chat to him, and the conversation, because of what the Bible says, would be a flat earth conversation. I just foolishly assumed he would also believe and understand these principles based on his book. And he didn't. He fought the globe science with me. It was bizarre.
That's crazy. Now, my wife's brother-in-law is also a pastor, and they are Bible-believing fundamentalist Christians, and they'll tell you they live on a ball, and they'll tell you that we go around the sun. It's just because the way that it was taught was very smart by these, Masons or whatever you want to call them. They taught it as, we'll teach the lie and we'll teach the truth as being the dumbest theory ever. So you grow up and you hear, flat earthers, people who think the earth is flat, it's clearly a ball. We've done the studies, we've done the math, we've done the scientific exploration to know that the earth is a ball. And usually if you ask somebody, well, how do you know? The couple answers you'll get are, well, of course it's a ball because boats go over the curvature. And if you tell them that if they go to the beach and just zoom in with their photo camera, that boat will reappear. And then also if they just did the real math, a 6-foot person, my height, standing at the beach is supposed to see 3.1 miles to the curvature. But I've personally seen boats 15 miles or greater.
Yeah, it's mad. I mean, you just got to look with your own eyes. I mean, one of the things that you brought up just last night on Globebusters was about some of the old books. And without paraphrasing what you said, you kind of hinted at them being changed with the revisions. And the books that you were talking about were specifically globe-based proof books, if you like. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Ask the question again.
Well, on Globebusters yesterday, you were basically explaining that some of the books had gone through revisions, and the scientists, in inverted commas, that were telling you their principles and theories were almost dispelling their own myths and saying anybody who takes this as literal is nuts, and if you take this and put this into reality, it's wrong. But then you said on the next page you'd have something that didn't tie in with the time that they were actually alive. They had more recent proofs that they were talking about in their books.
Oh yeah, totally. If you read Lucretius, he's one who wrote about things like that. Also Aristotle. You can tell that those have all been changed, and the fact that we don't have any of those books. In fact, the oldest book that we even have is around 500 years old. There's no older books. All books have been rewritten, condensed, changed. It all doesn't even make much sense when you read a book by Aristotle. For instance, one that they say he wrote in 300 BC, or Lucretius wrote one in 50 AD, because you want to know, well, when did they say they wrote it? Like when was their authorship? For instance, we didn't change the dates till well after that. So they would have had to written in their books a different date completely. But it's been changed and recently updated. So there is no more copy of the original to see what they wrote. It's been changed, meaning you can't verify any of that information. Now, do I think that Aristotle lived? Yeah. I'm not going to say that he didn't live and that he's completely fabricated. But I think it'd be very easy to take one of his old writings, if you had it, rewrite it into a new condensed version, and you would have, at that point, been able to change whatever you wanted.
Definitely. Where do the Freemasons tie in with all of this?
Well, I think that they kind of know what's going on at the highest level, very highest level, not the lower level Freemasons, just ones at the highest level. If you look at their checkerboard floor, if you've ever seen a checkerboard floor, it falls away from you. The same way that they kind of believe the ground does. The way that they talk about circling the square, squaring the circle, the whole symbology of the compass and square. They were the originators of this country. They were the ones, the founding fathers were Freemasons. And so the entire thing was set up as a kind of occult, mysterious, look at our dollar bills, look at the symbology all over, the pyramid, the eye above the top. It's all pretty clear as far as looking at that. And then if you look at NASA from top to bottom is a Freemasonic organization who even claimed the moon to be Tranquility Lodge, number 1 or number 0, whatever. So they've kind of gone around and most of astronauts are Freemasons. So it just becomes clear that this is kind of an organization that at the deepest roots kind of runs the world. And it's kind of what I was talking about, having your hand in both things. You have your hand in the religious end of it and your hand in the scientific end of it, so you control all people.
Do you think that the same principle applies with things like the Antarctic Circle and what they now call the ice shelf? Are these things being deliberately hidden by potentially Freemasons? What's your take? What's your view?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that there's Freemasons out there guarding it.
No. But part of the lie.
Yeah, at the highest levels are Freemasons. So they did have to make the Antarctic Treaty, which doesn't allow any of us to go there. Doesn't allow it to be claimed by any country, so that no country could just tell the truth about it. So yeah, there's just individual bases out there. Each country has their base out there, and they're all part of the whole system, which is the tax the people and live your luxurious life, and make sure that the people below you are constantly afraid of outside military interference, so that you're always paying taxes and always looking to your government for answers for everything you need.
So it's control.
Absolutely, yeah. The control is the whole name of the game. It's the way that you can be on top of anybody, that you can make more money than them. Who makes more money in a company, the CEO or the cashier? Obviously the CEO, because the CEO is in control. If the cashier was in control, the things would be the other way around. The cashier would make more money.
I mean, do you think there's actually something being hidden, though?
In Antarctica?
Well, not necessarily in Antarctica. I mean, without paraphrasing other people's theories, we've got NASA and the Antarctic Treaty coming along pretty much at exactly the same time. And the theory goes that they're hiding maybe a dome, maybe more land.
Yeah, they're hiding the truth. So if I was able to just say what that was, then they wouldn't be doing a very good job of hiding it.
Quite right.
But that's what we're trying to find out. I mean, the saddest thing about this whole thing is if I or you were in charge of NASA tomorrow, we would have all the answers. So the saddest thing is there is somebody who knows, and they just simply continue to put out a lie, because it's gives them control, gives them money. They've $3 trillion in total is how much NASA has made off taxes plus sales of satellite dishes, which are simply a fabrication. They don't exist. There's no satellites in the sky. That's not where your cell phone coverage comes from. It's not where your TV coverage comes from. It's just simply what they tell you.
I mean, you say it's definitely NASA. Did you see the ESA launch to the ISS yesterday?
No, I'm sure it was terrible. Is that the one they connected?
It was the same old stuff that they give you time and time again. So we only got to see about 30 seconds of the rocket going up before it went horizontal and then cut to a different feed. I noticed that Wakey had done a video and completely dissected it up, and on his clip that he had, they showed it for a little bit longer, but then it cut to an animation, which they even confessed was an animation. It was pretty much exactly the same as every single launch you've ever seen.
Yeah, it's completely garbage. It's everything that they say every time the rocket gets up there and it gets near where space would be, then the video cuts off, and it's already going parallel to the ground. It's going out and it's probably crashing either in the ocean, or it's crashing in Antarctica, or it's disintegrating. I mean, if you remember, did you see the last SpaceX launch that blew up?
Yep.
Right, and that rocket disintegrated in the sky. So maybe that's what's happening. Say that blew up 30 seconds early or a minute early. that could possibly be what they're setting up, which is just a tin can with a fire coming out the back of it. It gets up there in the sky, gets out of our sight, and then disintegrates, because that's all that happened. It just happened a lot earlier than normal, and we got to see it. But nothing hit the ground. Not one piece of that rocket ever hit the ground. It completely turned to dust in the sky.
I mean, do you think we actually get much truth at all out of NASA? I mean, it can't all be lies.
Oh, I think it's all lies. No, I mean, obviously we get aerial footage, pieces that they use to make Google Earth, also maps. Those kind of things are pretty true as far as the view, not necessarily that when they wrap it around a ball. But no, besides that, they just take, I'm sure that weather is pretty true as far as you can look out at the Pacific Ocean. And since weather comes across California, going west to east, yeah, they can predict weather by looking at the cloud patterns and say, well, it looks like rain is coming tomorrow or the next day. So we get that from them, but we don't get anything else. It's all lies. It's all, and jobs and a part of the economy running comes through them, but it's all lie. We shouldn't be paying for lies.
No, definitely not. I mean, on your, I'm not going to say you don't do this now, but it was slightly more prevalent on your earlier shows. You would always dice up the eye level horizon because it's probably the best way of dispelling the curve. But can you just give us a little bit of a talk on the horizon?
Sure. You mean from the horizon should be about 3 miles away from you if you're standing at the beach. And one of the weird things is, if you kind of picture yourself standing at the beach right now, if you look out at that water as far as your eye can see, all of that water is below your feet. But to your perception, the water rises. The water rises to your eye level. Now, it doesn't physically rise. I'm not saying that it physically rises, but it's the way our eyes work. That we don't look at the water and think that everything that we see is below our feet, when it is. Our feet are at the beach. All the water is below the beach level. So when you watch a boat go out and it starts to disappear over the curvature, what's actually happening is the boat is being covered by the waves in front.
And as you rise up in altitude, I mean, one of the things that I try and get across to people when they show me curves from high altitude is that as that camera spins, the horizon's always at eye level. In other words, you might see a bend because of the camera lens, but the horizon itself is always at the same point.
Correct. And that wouldn't happen on a ball. If you think about taking off in a plane, the horizon rises as high as the plane rises. It's always at your eye level. Now, same thing at the beach when I talked about water being below your feet. If we were on a ball, your eyes would not need to compensate by bringing the water far away from you to your eye level. That's happening because you're on a limitless plane, or it's at least limitless from where you can see. Sure, there could be a dome piece at the end of Antarctica. We wouldn't know that, but it would still raise to your eye level because it's a flat plane. But if it's a curved surface, meaning you're on the top of a ball, well, it would fall away from you. It would not rise to your eye level. Nothing would need to come up. It would all go down. So, yeah, I mean, if you just look at anywhere where you've ever been, on a plane, on a mountain, that horizon will be at your eye level. It will never fall below you as you get higher. Now, the only people that say that it does, NASA, because they say that they're up high enough in the sky to where it falls away from them. But you'll also notice you don't see that from their ISS footage. They're always right above the middle of the ball. They don't fly to where we can see them looking over the edge.
I mean, one of the other things that you've pointed out time and time again, and I think you even had somebody try to debunk you on it. I watched it before the show. I can't remember what the guy's name was, some cartoon character. But you were pointing out things like stellar parallax. And in his debunking video, he essentially ignores your point and focuses on your graphic work as opposed to the point you're making. But can you take us through how stellar parallax should work?
Well, if you just think about the fact that to believe you're on a ball means that you believe that you're spinning 1,000 miles per hour, number one. You believe that you're going 66,000 miles per hour around a sun in a 584 million mile orbit around the sun. So that means every year you're traveling 584 million miles, and you're not ending up where you started because the sun itself is traveling 480,000 miles per hour around the galaxy. So you are ending up, after you do a circle around the sun, you're ending up completely away from where you started. Yet January 1st, every single year, the stars reset the exact same above our head. It would be impossible if you were traveling through space. The stars would have changed their location, but the North Star is the North Star today. It will be in 10 years. It will be in 20 years. It'll be in 30 years. It's not going anywhere. They'll tell you that there's 0.001% stellar parallax, that it is moving, but that's not something we can measure. That's only done with these huge telescopes and, as you would call it, maths, which we just think that's funny over here in the United States, that you and add an S to that word.
Of course, you call it math.
Yeah, it's math.
But if there's more than one of it, what if there's more than one sum?
So if you're talking about the number one, that's math. But
no, I mean, if you do two equations.
Okay, I see where you're going. Yeah, I guess we look at it as like arithmetic. Do you say arithmetics?
No, you got me there. I mean, you say we laugh about this, and you mentioned was it your brother-in-law that's a pastor?
Yeah, he would be my brother-in-law also.
How does the rest of your family react to your views on flat Earth?
I don't know. They're not big fans, I guess. I wouldn't know how to really say it. I don't think certainly not talked about in family circles.
I mean, that was going to lead me on, but you've been a bit cagey about answering it. I mean, I'm quite open about being a flat earther with my family, and with the exception of my brother, who's not particularly keen on it, they're all fairly happy to try and debunk me left, right, and centre, which I love. Is it a dicey subject in your family?
Not between like my mom and I. It's fine. My dad probably he always raised me as make sure you have a good paying job, pay your taxes. Live your life and die. Something he probably just doesn't worry about, doesn't think about. So I just don't talk to him about it. It wouldn't be important to him anyway. Even if I were to prove it, well, he'd say, what's the difference? You have to live your life. What difference would my life have been if I would have known the truth? He wouldn't look at it from a standpoint that I do. So yeah, I would just say that there's really nothing there. My mom doesn't want it brought up a lot around her new husband because he works in the industry as far as working for a company that makes parts and things for NASA. And so it's something that she doesn't, and he's a very smart man. I like to talk to him. But I just don't think people understand that when you attack NASA, you're not attacking the companies that build these things. That doesn't mean that what they're building is fake or that they're lying. It simply means that they're building things based on a mathematical principle that has been given to them as true. And so they're going to build a great engine for the rockets, and the rockets might go up in the sky, but they don't go to quote unquote space. They don't go, around planets. They don't go to the moon, things like that. Even though, a lot of people might. I remember one guy saying, "You're saying that the moon landings were faked?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, then you're calling my grandpa a liar because he built part of the Saturn V rocket." I said, "No, your grandpa's not a liar. Your grandpa built part of a rocket. Congratulations, it just didn't go to the moon."
Right. I mean, do you think this is it? The way that they've compartmentalized the whole of NASA and a lot of other things, that's why 99% of us think we live on a globe.
Yeah, I mean, as far as why they compartmentalized it, yeah, because you can't have people at the low end knowing the ultimate truth. In fact, if you look at the NASA launches and they've got the 10 people or 20 people sitting at these computer screens, they don't realize that the information that's on the computer screen can be easily programmed to be shown to them. It doesn't mean that it's actually currently going on. And those people don't have control over anything. Imagine you were going up in a rocket. We were going to send you to space. And then you found out that 20 people sitting at computer desks all had keyboards that could affect your ride. Like, you wouldn't allow that. Imagine if you found out that 20 people at a computer had control over your airplane as you flew across the country. You would never allow that. You would just never agree to be on that flight. And so those people don't have any control. They're just simply there to watch numbers and, maybe raise their hand or ring a buzzer if they see a certain level going off the tracks. But, it's not happening the way that it appears, at least.
So what do you think of the implications then? If everybody actually found out, if every single person on the planet subscribed to your channel and they all took what you said as read and believed you, what would be the implications of that happening?
I think the world would be a lot better place. If you look at my comments on the videos, you'll see two types of people, right? You'll see one, somebody who's saying something very loving and caring and kind, and hey, great, thanks for opening my eyes. This is really something I never thought about. I appreciate you making these videos. Thanks for saying something different than what we're taught and allowing us to open up. And then you'll see somebody who says that my parents were siblings and that, I should be put in a gas chamber. I mean, that's the kind of comments you get from people who watch my videos. So that's the difference. You have two types of people in this world, the ones that science has created and the ones that have, basically held on to religion and held on to a feeling that they're created or a more important part of this world than just being another animal that happened to evolve.
So for you personally, has flat Earth been of benefit to your life, or has it been of financial detriment or financial benefit?
No, not at all. No. No, it's kind of been the opposite for now. I think when we started, we had no idea what we were getting into. I kind of thought by making a few videos and a few people seeing like Mark Sargent's videos, Eric Dubé's videos, that people would see the truth and it would start to come out. More people would start doing videos and it would take off from there. And it really has. I mean, talk about in February when I started, there was no videos on YouTube. Now there's hundreds of thousands. So, I mean, it definitely has taken off on its own. But I still feel like I need to keep speaking truth. So I keep doing it. And no, there has not been any kind of monetary gain as far as I would have made more money by not doing any of it and sticking to selling books like we were doing before. But no, it's been good. We've had some donations and, that's been great, but it's only been, say $3,000 or so since February or March. So,
I mean, I ask because you get loads of grief over this when there's channels out there that I wish I could remember the name of the guy that was trying to debunk you, but he's got a lot more. What's his name? Sorry?
Armored Skeptic.
That's the guy. I mean, without being rude, the guy struck me as a bit of a dick, especially as he ignored 90% of what you said and focused on your animations rather than what you're actually pointing out. But he has far more subscribers and I would assume makes a lot more money, but yet you seem to get knocked over this quite a lot.
Yeah, and the thing that bothered me is he calls himself a skeptic, which the definition means that you question all opinions, and the globe is an opinion, and so he's coming at me saying how skeptical he is and how it's so honest and true that the Earth's a globe, when it's not. It's a belief. It's a religious belief. You have to have that belief. You have to have that trust, that faith in what scientists are telling you is true. When I know that you are standing upright right now where you're at, no blood's rushing to your head, and where I'm at, no blood's rushing to my head. We're both standing upright. And if we're both being pulled to the bottom, then it means the Earth is flat, not that it's a ball. You can't just jump into that conclusion. And again, if we were out at the beach and 3.1 miles away from us, the boat fell over the edge, and with the binoculars or telescope, that boat didn't come back, then you would start to say, okay, well, possibly we are on a ball. But then we'd be able to have pictures of upside down buildings and things from space. We don't have any pictures like that. There's not even pictures of the Earth. They're composite images because they're taken from a high altitude plane, doing paths over the Earth, taking pictures. Then you piece them all together, put it into a spherical model, and there's your globe.
Yeah. I've only got a couple more questions because I know you're coming to us from a hotel room at the moment, so your Wi-Fi is pretty poor, and I'm hoping to keep this under about an hour. So yeah, you good for a couple more questions?
Absolutely.
Cool. I mean, on a personal level, I mean, do you actually, what we're doing now, do you enjoy this? Do you find this stressful?
No, I wouldn't say. I get a lot of requests, and I wish I had more time to keep up with emails and messages and comments. I mean, it like pains me to see when I get around to looking at comments, I'll see a comment from somebody 3 or 4 days ago that's asking me a question, and then 2 or 3 days go by and they'll come back and comment, this guy's a loser. He doesn't even answer questions. He's afraid of answering our questions. He's, he's just doing it for the money or whatever. There's a million things people say. So that's just upsetting because I couldn't possibly get to everything. I mean, I get 100 emails a day. So even to read 100 emails would take 200 minutes. So, I mean, that's 3 hours just to read the emails I get a day, and that's not answering one of them, which what good would that do anybody?
So how did it come to be? So you found out about Flat Earth, and then from there, how do you get to being where you are now with, I don't know how many subscribers you've got, quite a few, but how do you go from there to here? Why do you want to tell people about Flat Earth?
Well, my wife had told me to make a video back in January or December of last year. And I said, there's no way I could because people would make fun of me or, whatever. There was no other videos. It just didn't seem worth it. I said, no one's even going to believe it. It might be a truth that we just have to kind of keep to ourselves for now. And then in February, right at the beginning of February, we saw the Clues videos by Mark Sargent. And I liked the way that he presented it. It was a way that I felt I could present it, add a little humor to it, kind of keep it interesting. And so I kind of started to make videos, and it really took off from that point with getting emails from people saying, please make more. And we were kind of hoping that, I remember asking, we thought it'd be crazy if I got 100 views of a video. We thought that would be insane. And they just started taking off. I mean, now that San Bernardino video I put out, 5 days ago, is up to 125,000 views. So now it's just a little bit more important in knowing that what I say will be heard by a lot more people. So I want to be a little bit more careful. It's not as easy just to put out random videos and not care. So yeah, I just have to think a little bit more before I put out a video, making sure that I'm covering all the bases and not going to make a mistake, things like that. So that's the only part that's a little bit more stressful. But besides that, no, I think it's great. I like doing the interviews and things. And my hope is that more people get out and test it, because if they do, they'll see that there's no way they live on a ball. In fact, you should be able to do it in your head. You can just picture what the idea of living on a ball is. It's a joke. It's a gag. It's not humanly possible. It's not shown in any evidence. There's no proof of it. It's just told to you that you better believe you live on a big rock spinning through space, flying at 66,000 miles per hour, and you better believe it, or else you're stupid. And that's, of course, what you would tell somebody when you're telling them a lie. You're going to tell them, here's the truth, and the what you're believing in is stupid. And that's what they do. They tell us that flat Earth is stupid because it's the truth. I mean, it's the only way that they can keep it going.
And I've got one more question before if you can rattle off your channel names and stuff in a moment. But if you've got NASA telling us that we're on a globe and most people are believing it, is there ever going to be that tipping point where more people believe it than are indoctrinated? That was kind of a first part of the question. And to finish off, how much of NASA do you think you get? How much of your stuff gets viewed by NASA?
Good question. I'll start off with that one first. I don't think a lot, because I think that in my opinion, they've gotten to the point where they think that they're untouchable. And that's why they're able to do stupid things like put out that jack-o'-lantern sun on Halloween that they said was what the sun looked like. It's the picture of the sun with it looks like a pumpkin. And then they put out on Halloween the asteroid that was going to zoom by Earth, and it looked like a skull. They're just playing games at this point because they don't care. When you have 95% of the world who believe in something, NASA knows that, everything they put out is completely fraudulent. I don't know if you've ever seen the picture that they showed they call it the black marble. They showed a picture of the Earth with its lights on, everybody's lights on at night. And in the western part of Australia, they had it covered with lights. And people started going crazy saying, that's completely uninhabited. There is nobody who lives there. Why is there all these lights? And NASA comes back the next day and says, scientists have confirmed that was forest fires. And the whole thing was just covered in lights. Like, that's the whole Western Australia was on fire. But you'll see if you look on Facebook or something, all these people come to the rescue of NASA saying, I told you idiots, it's just forest fires. So NASA could have said anything. They could have said there was carnivals going on there and people would have bought it. So, I don't think that they really care at this point. You can kind of tell that they've kind of pushed a lot of the, back in the day when you had Wernher von Braun and James Webb and all these guys running NASA, their names were kind of out in the open. Nowadays, we know who James Bolden is, but that's it. We don't know anybody else that works there. They kind of have set up themselves for if it ever goes down, they're just going to all disappear into the night. And that gets to your first part of your question. I do think things can change. It would just take a grassroots movement from people to go and say, we want to elect the next head of NASA ourselves. That if it's a publicly paid for government entity, why can't we elect a head of NASA? And then if that head of NASA was actually truthful, he could step in and immediately send up rockets and send up cameras. I would do that tomorrow if it was me, and we would have the truth in a day. And that's what's so upsetting about this. We have all these people speculating, what's the moon, what's the sun, how big's the earth, da, da, da. We should know tomorrow. We have the equipment and the money easily to just answer all these questions.
Superb. Can you tell us where people can find you? So what are your channels and your radio show? Can you just give us a quick plug before we sign off?
No problem. You can go to Jeranism.com, which is JERANISM.com. We have the channel on YouTube, which is Jeranism, youtube.com/Jeranism. I also have the Monday and Tuesday night show, which Bob is kind of hosting for now, but I'm also there most nights, sidekicking, and that's at Globebusters. And I think that's youtube.com/Globebusters1, the number 1. And that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, and then we've got our show Monday nights on Truth Frequency Radio from 9 to 11 Pacific time. That's kind of my wife and I's show that we kind of do our own thing and laugh at my wife and laugh at me and our funny beliefs. And it's just a more kind of fun, laid back kind of show. We take calls and things like that.
It has been extremely informative. So Jeran from Jeranism, thank you ever so much for being on Flat Earth UK.
I appreciate you having me on. Thanks, guys.
It's absolutely been my pleasure. To all of you in the comments and to all of you watching, thank you ever so much for tuning into Flat Earth UK Live, and I will see you all in the next video.